All right, so here we go. Our behind the scenes weather model discussion for Wednesday, September the 7th. How's it going, everyone? William Cole here in the Storm Studio. This is day number 2. We're trying this out. Do you folks find this interesting? Is this something you want to watch in addition to our normal weather broadcast? This is going to be for social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, platforms like that, whereas opposed to using our fancy TV graphics and animations, things like that, we're basically just going over the raw data. And we totally understand this is not going to be for everyone, but some folks out there may be interested in kind of seeing the general setup of the forecast. And again, just some of the data that we look at here in the Storm Studio on the daily. So let us know in the comments, is this something you're interested in watching if we do one of these daily? Like I mentioned, this is version number 2. Yesterday was the first day we did it. And again, we'll just kind of take it from there. Typically, these should be about 5 to 8 minutes in length. I think yesterday we went right around 12 minutes. So the times will vary a little bit, but we're really going to try and condense this down and get through these fairly quickly. So also, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm not in a tie, I've been working on some kind of behind the scenes stuff here as well for fall severe weather. So I'm kind of working, but not really working, so to speak. So I'll be back in my normal tie most likely tomorrow, if you were wondering about that. Okay, so let's go and get started here and talk about what we have going on. Big ridge of high pressure, right? The summer heat dome that was in control of our weather here in North Texas brought us just the stifling summer, or at least most of the summer. Well, it's now out on the West Coast. There's really no change with that overnight. And in fact, you can see really what just looks like that big donut hole. Of course, temperatures out in California have been soaring. All the major national news, the California power grid basically in the clincher right now. Could they even have some rolling blackouts out there, unfortunately. But here in North Texas, since we're kind of on the front side of that, you can see those wind barbs, right, coming in from the north. So we've now gone from northwesterly into more of a northerly flow. Northerly flow here in North Texas. That's a fairly quiet weather pattern. And simply put, as we go through the remainder of this work week, even into the weekend, essentially that is the way it's going to remain. More of a troughing pattern on the East Coast. That's where the bulk of the more active weather is going to be, at least over the next couple of days or so. Honing in here in North Texas, as we look at our visible satellite review here, it's a similar story to the last several days. You can just kind of see what look like little cotton balls around, right? Those are just bubbling cumulus clouds, right? We've got a lot of humidity around. We're applying the daytime heating, so we've got cumulus clouds bubbling underneath some of those clouds, some of those cumulus clouds. We do have a few isolated showers around the coverage, meaning who's actually seeing rain today. It's pretty minimal. In fact, as I'm looking at live radar just kind of over my shoulder here, again, our far southern counties, like down around Bosque County, Hill County, there's been a few showers there. And then over in Van Zandt, Henderson County, for the most part, we've remained dry. It's about a 10% rain shot as we go through the evening. Otherwise, if you're making evening plans, it does look mostly dry, again, here in the Metroplex. So do keep that in mind. As we look at the tropics, obviously we had a very slow tropical season up until about a week ago. We're now beginning to get things churning in the tropical Atlantic. We're still watching Danielle, right now currently our only hurricane, and by the way was our first hurricane of the season. She formed last Friday, or officially became a hurricane last Friday. She's wandering around the cooler waters of the northern Atlantic, and eventually she's going to begin to make an easterly jaunt over towards Europe. No longer at that point will be a hurricane. She'll turn into a gale, but again, she could bring some gusty wind and obviously some active weather over towards that part of the world, but essentially she's really just a non-player going forward. Our attention is also on Earl. This is still a tropical storm north of the Caribbean Sea, east of the Bahamas. And again, as we take a look at the very latest on Earl, he is forecasted to become a hurricane. Still potentially even today may become a hurricane, if not the way it looks overnight or first thing tomorrow morning. And he's forecasted to actually become a major hurricane going forward. In fact, by sometime on Friday, should be making the transition to a major hurricane. But again, you can see his path. It's off to the northeast, and the way it looks right now, he will not be impacting anywhere within the continental United States. So good news there. By the way, it will kind of give a glancing blow to the Bermuda area, of course, very small island out in the Atlantic. Hurricane watch is currently in effect for the Bermuda area. Otherwise, quickly, we are watching a couple disturbances coming off the continent of Africa. You can see those X's showing up. And again, that is our main development zone. This time of year, we watch for waves coming off the continent of Africa. And again, we watch for those to make the westerly jog out into the tropical Atlantic and potentially turning into something tropical. As we look here quickly at the, again, just kind of the mid-level chart here. This is still the 500 millibar chart, but I've also put on vorticity or areas of spin. We're looking specifically out here in the tropical Atlantic. I'll roll you through the next 10 days. And this is based off the European model. Again, you can see two separate waves coming off. One of them basically gets caught up in an area of high pressure. You see what also looks like a donut hole right there in the center of the Atlantic. That wave, which could become a tropical depression, maybe even a tropical storm, gets pulled up in that area of high pressure going forward in time. The additional waves coming off the continent of Africa, you can see that third wave right there. As I roll this into motion, that looks pretty interesting, but a similar story. And again, you see that right in the center of your screen, kind of just looks like a little donut. It also gets caught up in that area of high pressure, and it gets pulled to the north as well. So it would be great news, because even though it looks like it's about to make that westerly track over towards the Caribbean, again, it gets sucked up to the north and, again, simply put, avoids the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Obviously, that's going out 10 days. There's not a lot of detail with that quite yet, right? So in the back of our mind, obviously, we all know we have to continue to watch that, especially this time of year. But the good news continues to be, at least for interest in the United States or the Caribbean, this has been a very, very quiet season. And again, hopefully that's the way it's going to remain. Okay, so now I want to bring you back home here, and we're going to look at the continental United States and really North America here. Similar chart, we're still going to look at the 500 millibars here. We're going to look for, again, the ridge of high pressure out to the west, what's happening with that, and then any storm troughs that could bring active weather to us here in North Texas. And as it turns out, there's going to be one on the way. So as we go forward in time, there's the ridge of high pressure. You see it beginning to break down. So number one, by Friday, that's good news for the folks out on the West Coast, right? As that begins to break down, the temperatures will begin to ease down there. Two things I'm watching. You see that little area of blue coming up out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's a little area of disturbed weather, a little bit of tropical moisture there. Because we have the big area of high pressure out to our west, I don't think that's going to get very close to North Texas. Our eastern counties, Friday, Saturday, maybe into the weekend, there could be a few showers associated with that, but I think it's mainly a swing and a miss, right, for us here in North Texas. But what's going to be more important by late weekend, Sunday into Monday, look at this big storm trough here. It develops to our north. You see it there. It is developing across parts of the Dakotas and Nebraska. That's going to force a cold front down into our area. Look how that kind of turns into a big bowling ball look there. And in fact, that's going to swing through parts of the Great Lakes region. Behind it, we're going to have another trough. You see one more little short wave coming through in about 8 to 9 days. So the bottom line is kind of going into more of an active pattern. We have the one cold front that looks pretty decent for this time of year, right? It's not a major blast of cold air. There's nothing crazy going on with it. But will it bring us some less hot temperatures? And again, this is for Sunday into Monday. And the answer to that is yes. So let me go and show you. This is what we call the 850 millibar chart. It's just off the surface, but it shows it's a better, at least, indication here of an air mass change, right? If there's some cooler air coming down with a potential cold front, this gives you a better idea than just looking at the surface, okay? So just kind of the background on this chart. So as I roll this into motion, here we go, heading into the weekend, you can see the front, the yellows and the greens showing up. And again, take a look there across the Central Plains, Northern Plains, decent cold front. And so here in North Texas, you can see it barely makes its way in, but the bottom line is I think it's going to take our temperatures from the 90s into potentially the mid 80s, okay? So, but behind it, we begin to warm back up as we go into more of a zonal pattern, the jet stream moving from west to east. And so you see the temperatures begin to rebound, and that next short wave that moves on through You can see the cold front associated with that. It's more of what we call a continental front, right? There's no real change of air mass whatsoever. In fact, it's more of just a surface boundary. So the bottom line is we have one potential less hot day, and that's going to be this upcoming Monday. Otherwise, it's a very much so steady as she goes forecast, with temperatures generally in the lower to mid 90s. The other big question, of course, anytime you're talking about a cold front, or again kind of a late summer cold front, is will there be any rain, any precipitation? And the models have not been very bullish on any activity with that. In fact, I'm just going to kind of fast forward you through time. This will be for this upcoming Sunday. This is as the front is moving through Oklahoma. Now look at Oklahoma, look at our Texas Panhandle. Could be rain, could be storms out there. But as soon as they begin to approach North Texas, they basically dry up. And there's the front passing through the area. And the model here, this is the European model, basically keeping us pretty dry. I've still put a 20% opportunity for that Sunday in my 12-day forecast, just kind of a placeholder to let folks know, hey, there could be an opportunity of some unsettled weather that Sunday, but again, the latest data is really not showing much whatsoever. In fact, the latest data through the next 10 days essentially keeping North Texas dry. So we went from a pretty wet, active pattern to now we're beginning to dry back up. I want to put some numbers with everything that we just looked at. And one other thing before we do that, one other thing that kind of caught my eye as I was looking over the data earlier behind that front, as you start talking about fall-like weather, sometimes you'll talk about kind of less humid, kind of drier air filtering in. And I just want to show you the dew points quickly here behind that front. And I can tell you there's going to be some fresher air with it as well. So bear with me as we're just kind of clicking through this. And this is still based off the European model. And I'll just fast forward this through time. And so again, obviously we're pretty humid. There's your dew points, but here comes the front. Look at those blues building in. Again, these are not air temperatures. This is your dew point, the measure of the amount of moisture in the atmosphere. And there's your Monday morning. We've got dew points in the 40s Monday morning. That's going to be some pretty dry air. And even as we go through your Monday, even into Tuesday, look at that dry air in place. So it's going to go from kind of the balmy, humid type air mass that we have in place now behind the front. It's going to feel a little more like fall with temperatures easing down, but it's going to be that dry, crisp air in place as well. So in a way, kind of our first mini taste of fall, if you will, again, late Sunday into Monday, even lingering into Tuesday. Okay, now what I want to do quickly here, because I know we're really tight on time, so I want to kind of speed this up, is this is the data. This is the raw data coming in from the European model, right? And so again, you can see temperatures basically in the lower to mid 90s. There's your Monday, and right now the European continues to advertise highs there in the mid 80s. European saying right around 86. What I typically forecast off of, this is the blend of models, right? This is a product from the National Weather Service. They pull all the different models in, they weight them differently as far as how they perform typically, and then it spits out a bunch of numbers. And this is essentially what my forecast is based off of, right? So going forward over the next several days, you can see temperatures right in the lower 90s, about where we have been. The blend of models compared to yesterday, where it was still at 89, is beginning to ease down now too. It's at 87. And then again, you can see going forward in time, we're basically talking about temperatures back into the lower to mid 90s as we get into this upcoming week. But again, overall rain chances, like I mentioned, pretty minimal. We'll continue to watch that Sunday as that front begins to come through. So again, like I mentioned, just kind of the background on the forecast. Obviously, there was additional data, but just because of time constraints, that's about all we can get through to keep this at least semi-quick and not too boring for you. But again, like I mentioned, let us know, do you like these videos? Are these worth doing? And of course, also remember, if you have not downloaded our free mobile app, be sure to do that as well. It's on the Apple and Google Play Store. Again, just search Weather Tracker TV. And of course, as always, besides this video you're watching, of course, you can always watch our actual live channel, our actual forecast, Roku, Apple, Amazon Fire TV. And again, you can also watch it on our mobile app or on YouTube as well. So otherwise, again, thanks for joining us on this Wednesday. We'll be back with you tomorrow. We'll do these again. And again, like I mentioned, give us the feedback. Are these worth doing? And if so, we'll continue to do them for you. Otherwise, keep it here with Weather Tracker TV, North Texas's Weather Channel.